Mandela sense that education is the best weapon, the best tool, the best way to change the poverty. But the idea of inflicting a policy where your language is not part of the learning, as an educator, this is the patch I work on, I can tell you. It is contrary to every educational principle on earth. What you are meant to do is work with the child's first language, recognise you've got a multilingual child, that's a talent. What we're saying to the kid is, come to the Gubba school and we'll scrub this out of you. And when you see the old mission era footage, you realise why the Aboriginal people think, we've done this before. The truth is, we haven't actually stopped doing it. And why we are breaking their hearts. We raised hopes with the apology. We walked, many of us here, I know, I saw you on the day, on the bridge in Sydney. I looked around and thought, with my boy who's yesterday 16, he was a little kid still on my shoulders when we walked across the bridge. And I thought, we are still there. We are still stuck in that place. We are still stuck with the Constitution that surely is not the values of this church and in this community that we live by. I know in this community we do care for one another. These are our children. And this intervention is not about the children. It's damaging, because if we want all of our children to have the future that is here in this beautiful Aboriginal land, then we have to shatter this big lie. We have to raise our voices and question the government. And you write to the government and look at that constitutional opportunity that is just ahead now. Have a look at the You, Me, Unity website. I've written my offering, but to tell you the truth, it came from these people and dozens of other communities that I'm constantly in there listening to the wisdom that comes from those old people. What they said is that document, that constitution, is what Michael Kirby described yesterday. It is stained with discrimination and racism. What about we get the country to look at the referendum that's been promised before the next federal election in 2013? We could try for the change to have a document that respected Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Not in a total way, but in a way that would prevent discrimination like this ever happening again. The eminent barristers, judges, and all of the Aboriginal leadership that was in Canberra yesterday at this forum, that I raised my voice at. And I said, are we going to accept discrimination? Do we really want to live in an era, as Michael Kirby said, that could only be compared to the worst of the apartheid era? The truth is, South Africa now has a constitution that recognises the equality of all people. We would have a chance to write some words that said we are all equal, and there will be no discrimination on the basis of gender, male, female, child. We are equal. No discrimination on the basis of race or religion, culture. That's a start. When you think of your own words and you are able to submit that through that You, Me, Unity website, and Patrick Dodson and others yesterday assured me that if in this community you can come up with a suggestion about how to prevent this kind of discrimination, that's the enormous responsibility this expert committee is now feeling. They want us to wake the country up and to seize the opportunity and find some way to move a parliament that has allowed this to happen. I don't want 100 years from now someone to look back at us and say, well, how did they turn away? Why didn't we know? We've said that for so long. I realise most Australians have not heard what you've heard tonight. They are not connected to Aboriginal voices. They are not hearing what is happening in these communities. But you can yourself, through that website of Our Generation, get the DVD. You can talk to people in your workplace. And more importantly, you can take some simple action, as Dr. Janini Gomer said. That's not a man sitting on the front veranda just talking about this. He travelled to Geneva. He met the Committee for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. He travelled to meet Dr. Navi Pillay, the Human Rights Commission. He's an old man who should be at peace. He's just lost his sister. The pain of that happening at a time when he feels they are losing their land, I can't really put into words. But I can only say, he is right. Feel their pain, make it yours, and then please take some action yourself. I'm sorry if I talked too long. I'll try to answer your questions if there are any. On the Our Generation website, and if you want to connect on the constitutional change, that's the expert committee's website, which Patrick Dobson and others there, they call it You, Me, Unity. Y-O-U, U-V, Unity.
Just on that note, obviously, those people far better qualified than the person such as myself. To speak of change, does it take a change in the Constitution to stop the repetition of these discriminatory practices, or in the meantime, is it possible where a signatory to the United Nations anti-discrimination legislation, supposedly the document is providing, is there any room for challenge in the International Court of Law in, say, Hague, for example, to challenge these practices, or does it take a change in the Constitution to change any treaty when you sign to challenge it in the interim, or is it just going to be continual repetition of this discriminatory practice by the government and suppression of that?
That excellent question was asked down in the Melbourne Law School when a whole group of the Aboriginal leaders travelled with us. We showed the film, and they were mainly jurists. And Malcolm Fraser said, in attempting to answer it, that unless we had a Charter of Rights, a Bill of Rights, or a constitutional provision, the government the Federal Parliament has the power to suspend any law. So what they did was say they lifted the protection of the Racial Discrimination Act from applying to only one group of people, Aboriginal people. Yes, that does contravene all of our other responsibilities. It is clearly against a handful of covenants. The more recently supported Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People is very interesting. We've added language to many of our instruments in Australia that says, while we support this, it will not be binding, it will not affect our own laws, our lawmaking. So unless the phrase is you domesticise it, you bring it back and put it into law here. In fact, you can sidestep. I would say first, that is such a serious question. The first thing, words, you are so right. Even laws ultimately will not stop injustice, discrimination, racism. The change really has to be written in our minds and hearts. That's the important part of what you're asking. But to take it on before waiting for all of this change, Michael Kirby revealed to this forum yesterday in Canberra, he said he retired sadly from the last case that he handled, where he was the dissenting judge when a group of Aboriginal people in one of the communities tried to go using our existing laws and the international covenants. And it went all the way up to the High Court. They wanted to challenge the intervention on the basis that the so-called compensation for these 40-year leases, there was going to be compensation, and they said it is not just, because in the year I was born, a High Court Judge, Dixon, said just compensation is not only about money, it has to be fair, and he tried to establish what is just compensation. Now in this case, you're taking away the control of your or my destiny, how we run our families, how everything that we do, and you're shaming us. Of course, in front of our home there is that sign, subtext of those signs is, see, Aboriginal men and women do not love their children, cannot look after their children, they are wife-beating alcoholics. The shame of this is the deep hurt. So the judges in the Northern Territory, now in the Supreme Court, there was a judge that said this intervention now is removing his ability to be able to prosecute people in the sense of delivering a fair sentence, because he said, under this law, I'm not allowed to consider all of the circumstances. We've got ourselves into such a mess because the Constitution allows the Federal Parliament to make laws on behalf of a race. We are one of the few places on earth that has the concept of race written into the Constitution. And these race powers, while they exist, there is no wording that says, I will make a beneficial law only. It says a government could actually remove the right of Muslims or Aboriginal people from voting in a state election. That is another one of the bizarre race powers. But the pointed end of this is that back in the 1967 referendum, many Australians felt they were voting in the change. It was built around say yes. And the country, more than roughly 90% of the country, they got 2/3 of every state and territory. It really carried the nation in a massive vote. But that enabling the Commonwealth government to make laws that applied to Aboriginal people became the curse that allowed this to happen. Because the government under John Howard, and then the same fallacy was repeated by Kevin Rudd and then Julia Gillard, was to say this is benefiting Aboriginal people. Now the UN has pointed out, for that to happen, Aboriginal people would have to accept it. So you had to have prior informed consent. But you heard Senator Nigel Scullion there grinning at the camera practically and saying, yes, well I realise, but we didn't consult anybody. I mean, they didn't. When I wrote to Tony Abbott and to Julia Gillard and to Jenny McMullen, the replies that came back, and Tony Abbott recently confirmed this, that the biggest mistake of the intervention, they said it was, his words, top down and no genuine consultation. Jenny McMullen has said the same in the letters of reply. If you write to them, you'll get a letter saying, yes, we made a terrible mistake. They'll actually say it was the other government's mistake. And then they'll say, and yes, there was no consultation, and yes, it was top down, but they will say, deceitfully, we have reinstated the Racial Discrimination Act. Now, the truth is, all of the discriminatory provisions of the intervention continue to this day. What they are hoping is that there won't be a court case. It is possible to challenge this internationally and here